Good afternoon, and welcome to another fatalistic version of Diatribes from the voice of doom. Now here's your fatuous and fatiguing host, voice of doom. Hello. Okay, I'm going to do another diatribe. I haven't planned it very well, but I spent a couple days thinking about the subject. And it was given to me by my fan, Nick, on his last comment, which I appreciate, because otherwise I wouldn't be doing this at all. He asked me my opinion on when the last domino would fall in this debacle that we call human existence. And he was talking about the hearings that we're hearing are not accomplishing a damn thing and won't accomplish anything, and they've already said they won't from the outset. But when the last straw is, his theory is that when people realize how futile it is to try to impeach Petri dish and get rid of his regime once and for all, that people will revolt, because that will be the last straw. And he asked me my opinion on when I think the last straw will be, and I had to think about it very carefully, because it's not the kind of subject you can just say this or that and be final about it, be conclusive. So let's talk about the last straw. And I apologize for the imagery that may come into your head as I describe the last straw, because I've always been very sympathetic toward beings that are dependent on humans or dependent on others, such as children and animals, that when they're put in a position where they can't do anything and they're being abused, it's heartbreaking. And we've seen it in every facet of our existence. So a camel is standing there in the desert, a strong animal, sturdy animal, a resilient animal, can travel long distances without drinking, has been the tool which we have used as a civilization to evolve with trade and etc. Let's not go into the history of the camel. You know what a camel looks like. Now, since the end of World War II, we have been throwing straws on this camel's back. This camel represents human civilization, basically. And they were putting straw on this camel, one twig at a time, and seeing how much they could get away with. Now, there was a whole new world order after World War II, and we decided to throw straws on the back that had to do with perpetuating war throughout the world so that we can make money and keep our economy strong and healthy and vibrant, which we will suffer the consequences for very soon. Now, I would say, in my analysis, and I said this to my boss, the owner of the casino that I worked in, when I walked in to see a dark casino on March of 2020, and I said to him, when we come out of this on the other side, the whole world will be different. And he said, it doesn't ring true, does it? And I said no, and then we parted ways. But I made that prognostication, and I stand by it, and I think I was proven rather correct. Because March 2020 was a time when the powers that be and the elitists decided, let's throw a few bales on the back of that camel, because we've been putting straws one at a time long enough. and the camel seems to be holding up rather well. So they threw a few bales on that camel's back, and the camel sagged. And then they were ready to really see how much this camel could actually hold. And they began throwing a lot of straws on that camel's back in earnest since March of 2020. And many things have happened. I think, going backwards a bit, I don't know if the powers that be planned on Orangey winning the presidency or if they planned on it, but they are always ready for any contingency. But they did engender in a lot of the public a visceral hatred for Orangey for what they did not know. They were just told he's a racist, he's an anti-Semite, he's a misogynist, and they ran with that. And he won anyway. Now, whether they planned for him to win so that he could become the scapegoat and the fall guy for what was to follow, or whether they just wanted to allow an outsider to be president for a while, just to create mayhem and show how bad it is that you would ever have anyone that's not a seasoned politician to run our country. And so Petri dish was elected. Now I know there's cheating there. Everybody does, because otherwise what used to be America and its population are a pathetic band of fools. The majority would vote for a senile, demented, corrupt fool. Racist. And he is a racist. There's very much documented evidence throughout his political tenure that he's a racist. So forget about him. Let's go back to the straws. Now, the problem with what will be the last straw is they tried to see, and they made very clear what the consequences would be for a revolt. They planned for a revolt, they wanted a revolt, and they made every contingency for a revolt. The D's, with Pelosi and those people. They wanted very much for January 6, 2021 to take place so that they could use draconian measures to smash any idea of having any demonstrations or protests against an election outcome if it's in their favor. Now, if Orangey had won, they could burn down the Capitol all they want. Burn down every monument and proceed to burn down every city, and that would be fine and dandy. But since Petri won, they were going to initiate and create a revolt. And they did. Now we know what happened with all that. People with the smallest of charges got 20 years in prison, or 13 years, or whatever. What have you. As if these guys could actually overthrow the government. This is absurd. If they don't want the government overthrown, they will make sure that it is not. And they would use any measures possible. But that was another straw. It was a straw on top of the camel's back saying, let's see what happens if we do this. And then when they do what we think they're going to do, then we will punish them very, very badly so that it takes any idea of revolting out of anyone's mind forever. You can't fight City Hall. That's the attitude of people. Now, that's why I have to tell you that there will be no straw that will cause a revolt. The camel is on its knees now, and the back is bending. The vertebrae are starting to give, and the back will snap, and the camel will go down in agony and probably die slowly after that. But they have been throwing straws on for the last 2.5 years. They have opened the border for anyone to bring in anything, and we see the consequences of that. The only person who doesn't see the consequences of an open border is Petri dish, because they clear the streets away from him when he's going through New York City to talk to the UN about climate change. And just goad people and just give them all kinds of straw men and canards to say the problem isn't here, the problem is here. The problem isn't a corrupt government, the problem isn't overspending and a $33 trillion debt. The problem is climate change. It's getting hotter in Zaire, and people are going to be displaced, and that's why they're coming to the border, and that's why we had to let them all sleep on the streets of New York. Now come on, the straws are piling up, the camel's on its knees, the vertebrae's starting to give way, and by the time the last straw is thrown on that camel's back, it will be much, much, much too late for revolt. The last straw is going to be worldwide genocide, okay? That's the last straw. They will release a virus. They will release a bacteria. They will release a chemical. They will release masses of bombs in order to get rid of millions of people at the outset and billions in the long run, while they are safely sequestered in their well-appointed fallout shelters that are much better looking and much better furnished than your average person's house, and have a lot of food and water and air. So they will wait for the dust to clear, and then they will come back to the surface with their AI and create a utopia. So as far as the common clay revolting, there is no last straw, because by the time the last straw hits, we'll already be running around not knowing where we're running to. I always like to see these documentaries on disaster when people just start running, and it's like, where are you running? And it's like, I'm just running away from here. It's no better over there. But you just start running. I'm just going to stay put in my house and hope that maybe my fate is to carry on after the conflagration. But that's the conundrum, and that's the catch-22 of the question, when will the last straw be before people revolt? By the time the last straw hits, it'll be too late to revolt, and people have been taught and indoctrinated that you don't revolt now. Don't even do anything to say that anything's wrong with the government, because you will be jailed. And there's many, many examples of that in our society, of just that happening. So I'm sorry I couldn't answer the question very well, but I think I gave you an idea of why we're doomed and why revolt is futile. But enjoy the rest of history while we're experiencing it. And I hope that this was somewhat enlightening. I will leave it there, and have a good afternoon, everybody.